Okay. So again, I was able to upload the last video to YouTube, and I will send Wednesday's video or live, and then also today's in like to our email. So if you want to subscribe to our email, well, if you're already watching, then you'll already see the live, but conjugate methods with an S .com, and you can just jump on there and enter your email, and we will send out videos to you. Anyways, all right, happy Friday. The first question is, and it's kind of piggybacking off of Wednesday's training question, is it possible to work off of a 3-day split? And is it like, could you be successful from it? What's the whys? What's the why nots? And go.
Okay, so the 3-day split can be very successful. A friend of mine, John Davis, he owns Davis Training Systems. He's in Orlando, Florida. He's built Olympic medalists who won gold medals, silver, bronze medalists. He's produced pro football players, pro athletes in multiple sports. Very, very successful using a 3-day split. Okay, so some of the benefits of a 3-day split, we'll just talk about real quick business-wise first. It made sense for him, right? So he can have, if he trains groups of athletes, people going into college, or playing pro, he can train them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which now means that he can have another group on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So from a business standpoint, training the Westside system, a conjugate system 3 times a week allows him to get twice as many athletes in. So from the financial standpoint of a gym, it's a great setup. Now, from the athlete standpoint, if you notice the athletes that I talked about him training were athletes who are in other sports, right? Meaning that they weren't a power lifter or a weightlifter only. So by doing a 3-day-a-week split, or 3-day-a-week split like that, you have to remember they have other volume. A 100-meter sprinter, quarter-mile sprinter, these athletes also have to do their track work. They're going to do conditioning work depending on the types of condition they need, as an example, lactic threshold training, VO2 max training. So that's going to take some of their volume up as well. Or they'll do technique work, so a football player is going to work conditioning specific for football, but they also have to work technique, quarterback's going to have to work on throwing, everybody's going to have their agility and the work that they're going to need to do. So it's, that 3-day split is very successful for them, okay? For the fact that it allows them to get the volume in for the other sports as well. Now, if you're looking at a 3-day split, that tells me that you don't have a lot of time. So if you're an athlete that's at a high level in other sports, that 3-day split's great. But if you're an athlete that who's not at a high level of competition but is limited on time, then it can be very successful as well. Like I said, most people do like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. They split it up to 3 days a week. The 4th day would be the following week. So it is a successful way to do this.
Okay, so say you do want to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Would you do a combination? Would you max out on like Monday, Friday sort of thing? Would you do like one max effort and then just switch into dynamic work, or?
So, that's a question that we get often. And the split that I follow is I do the 4th day would be on the Monday. Right. So instead of combining, if you're going to do a 3-day split for the conjugate method, instead of combining one of the days or trying to get all in one day, what I would do is, say as an example, max effort upper on Monday. Wednesday would be max effort lower. Friday would be dynamic effort upper. Monday would be dynamic effort lower. Okay. So I would keep rotating through the 4-day split as Westside Barbell had developed, instead of putting things together, because I feel that a lot of times people tend to miss things. They don't put enough volume into certain areas when they do that. But if they keep it to the original 4-day split, they get all the necessary lifts out of that. Okay. Right. Yeah. Obviously, I'm talking in general for the majority of people. Okay. Everybody has special needs, So somebody might say, well, I like to do max effort twice a week, Monday, Wednesday, and I'm extremely explosive naturally. And so maybe they need to bring their muscle mass up. And so maybe that 3rd day is more hypertrophy work to bring that muscle mass on. And then once that muscle mass is optimized, then you could switch back to the dynamic and max. Now that is a rare percentage of people. When I say naturally explosive, I said someone that's violently explosive without ever training. That's not common. But there are, that's just for the oddities out there, the people that aren't as, common.
Yeah. So if you're setting up okay, so we're looking at a month of programming, and how many days in between should you have as far as like your ME lower and DE lower?
So it more is based off of your max. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Your max effort lower and your DE lower. You're right. You want 72 hours in between. So that's what we're setting. Optimized is 72 hours between the two. Okay.
Good information, sir. And I will say I did know that because I have read all the books. But some people don't read the books, so it's good to point that out. All right. So when is it appropriate when you're training to schedule in a deload week, and why would you do a deload?
Okay, so this is a question that I get often, and what I would tell you is that in a perfect world, this system is set up to never have to deload. Now, we'll get into the reasons why you wouldn't, but ultimately, everything's based off a percentage of what you do. We wave our system in a pendulum wave, which gives us the ability to not have to deload. You don't want to have to deload unless you're going into a competition. That being said, that is based on your nutrition's perfect, your sleep is perfect, your management of life stress is perfect, you're not going through a pandemic, all these things are lined up perfectly for you. Now, things that would cause you to have to deload would be psychological stress, extra physical stress. Maybe you change jobs and there's a physical stress that's way beyond what you're used to doing, and now that takes up some volume. Maybe you're not eating as much food or hydrating the way you're supposed to. Or maybe you were doing everything right and your muscle mass increased, but you never increased your caloric intake to match that. And so now you're going to have to deload, okay? The other thing that I find out that's often is that it's great to have optimal training partners. Training partners are going to push you, get the most out of you. Now, some things that I see is you will sometimes take ultra high level athletes and you take a powerlifter who's #1 in the world and their training partner's #2 in the world. Well, that #2 person wants to beat that #1 person, okay? Because if they beat them, they break world records. They can be #1. Now, let's say the #1, lifter has won every deadlift they've ever done. All of a sudden, their training partner beats them in a deadlift, beats them by 5 pounds. So this person had just, say they missed a weight, and we don't like to miss weight. You don't recover as fast from weights that you've missed as fast as if you've completed the lift. Anybody who's powerlifted before, if the more lifts you miss in a competition, the more sore you get, right? So we want to complete our lifts. So now the athlete misses a lift, their training partner beats them by 5 pounds, so they're like, I just made a small technical error. And yes, they did. But now they add 10 pounds to the bar to beat their training partner by 5. Even though they missed that lift on a small technical error, it still added wear and tear to their body and fatigued them. Now they miss that lift, again. So now they missed 2 lifts in a row. Well, that also means that's going to set them up to not recover as fast during the week. If they get beat again, they're more likely to try to push again to try to win that, And next thing you know, they're not recovering fast enough, and they have to deload. So we design the program to not have to deload. If you deload, realize you're making a mistake. So when you deload, you also have to figure out what the mistake was, right? If say, for example, you're going through a divorce, you know what your stress is, right? Like there's nothing you can do to change that. What you might need to do is increase your volume a little bit, maybe get a little more sleep than normal if you can, and you have to make some adjustments like that. But if you have to deload, it is telling you a story. Your body is telling you something. Maybe your macronutrient profile isn't where it needs to be, or maybe your hydration isn't. And you say, well, my hydration's been great for the last 6 months. Well, maybe it was wintertime. Now summertime with the heat, maybe it's no longer optimal, right? Maybe you have a new position, a new job, and you don't feel stressed because you feel like you're doing a good job, but it still is a new job. You have new people you're meeting with. You don't know how things are going to go. All these things add up. Your body does not perceive physical stress or psychological stress any different, okay? That's the important part. So if you have additional psychological stress, additional physical stress, or you're just not sleeping as well, any of these things could cause you to need a deload, okay? So if you need to deload, like I said, there is something going on that you have to optimize and improve.
Mhm.
So when you deload, don't just deload and go back to what you were doing.
Right.
Deload and figure out what the problem is so that you don't have to deload again. Realize that every time you have to deload, now if you have to, you do it. It is the
Yeah.
best option for you at that time. If you keep causing yourself to have to deload, then what that is slowing down your gains,
Right.
right? Every time we lower volume, we lower our progress or slow our progress down or halt it, all right? So if you have to deload 3 times a year and say your deload, say 3 times a year takes 3 weeks, right? Per each deload. Let's say this is
Mhm.
how it works.
Yeah.
So that is 9 weeks of deload. 10 years of competing in powerlifting, that's 90 weeks of
Right.
deloading. You see what I'm getting at? That's
Oh,
less,
that's
that's
almost two
taking
years. Yeah.
2 years of progression away. Often I see this happen all the time. I see a lot of powerlifters or athletes, Olympic lifters, and they will start, they'll be really competitive, like one of the top 5 in the world or in the nation or whatever, and you see them go head to head with somebody, and maybe there's 10 athletes, they're really close and they're all gaining about the same, and all of a sudden one athlete just comes ahead over the time. And they're like, oh, that person had so much better genetics than we did. Really? Because, for years you guys were neck to neck. What that
Right.
tells me is that individual who pulled ahead was making correct choices more frequently at the right time, correct times.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just want to point that out to see the importance of yes, deload if we need to, but then figure out how to keep it from happening. Okay.
Right.
Now, if we are competing, we do deload for competition. Okay. And what that deload phase is for competition is designed to optimize us for our sport. So you are never the best you're never the athlete your training has meant you to be until you've fully recovered from your training, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's where that was. Now, how would we deload? Okay, so for deload for us, very simple. What I would do is on my heavy days, not work up as heavy, maybe work up to say 90% instead of,
Hmm.
90% effort. Then on my accessory movements, I can cut them, say instead of 8 to 10 reps, I would switch to 20 reps and do 30-second rest periods.
Right.
What that'll do is flush a lot of blood in, a lot of nutrients, a lot of hydration, help us recover a lot faster, and keep our conditioning up. So then when I feel recovered, I'll go back into my rep scheme and my rest period so I can handle more weight and more volume.
Yeah. So and it's funny because I thought this the first time I came over to the sweatshop. Why do powerlifters take such long breaks between their lifts?
So, and that's a great thing. Like with CrossFit, a lot of athletes feel like once they're not breathing hard, they're ready to go again.
Yeah.
Because technically, if you're in an AMRAP and you have to take a break, you don't sit down and say, 10 minutes would make me feel really good.
Yeah.
You break as short as you can, just enough to get back in the game, right?
Yeah.
For powerlifting, it's different. It's not about oxygen. It's not about air. It's not about breathing. It's a neurological thing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's to get our nervous system peak and as high as possible to get the most violent contraction out of our muscle tissue as possible. So we need the longer rest periods to reset that. Also, the colder your muscle tissue is, the faster it fires. If you're doing short rest periods, the heat of your muscle stays hotter and hotter and it contracts slower. Okay, heat produces friction. It's just like in a car, right? You don't want your engine getting too hot because you blow your car because of the friction.
Right.
Same thing with your muscle tissue, right?
My brain just
So,
exploded, by the way.
so it's a lot more than what people think. We can
Yeah.
understand neurologically why we take a longer rest period. We have to look at heat, as well, and we have to look at the way our body fuels our system, and we need to get the energy to our muscle to be able to do what we need to do. So there's a lot of components to it, but ultimately it is the ability to recover to lift the highest weight possible. Just a little bit ago, I talked about if someone had a deload and what that deload could do to them over the course of a career. It can be
Right.
devastating and holding you back, if you handle it incorrectly. Now, the same thing will go with what we're just talking about right now. You have a twin sister, you're both at the same level and competing in powerlifting. You're like, hey, look, I got a lot of stuff going on in life. I'm going to take, half the rest period she is.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that drastic, say 25% less rest period. Well, the problem's going to be along the way is that every week she's going to handle a little more weight than you, 5
Yeah.
or 10 more pounds and everything. But that 5 or 10 more pounds is going to add up to 10, 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 30. And the problem with that is when she's handling, say, 10 more pounds in a squat simply because she used an optimal rest period and you didn't, now
Right.
on her dynamic effort day, week 1 is 50% bar weight. Now she has 5 more pounds in the bar. Doesn't seem like much, but 5 pounds in the bar for 12 sets of 2, that's 24 reps.
Yeah.
And look at the volume increase there. Now she has a volume increase that you do not have. That volume increase is going to lead her to the next 10 more pounds above you, which now she has 10 more pounds in the bar,
Right.
12 sets of 2, okay? So that 24 is 240 pounds, roughly more volume. When she's 20 pounds heavier, she's at almost 500 pounds more volume than you per week. You can see how this adds up, and that's just on your main movement. That's not including your accessory movements, which is 80% of our volume.
Right.
So if she's picking up 500 pounds there, think of what she's picking up in your 80% of where the 80% of the volume is. Okay? That volume will keep building her. And then where's the psychological standpoint where she keeps going up, keeps beating you to where you eventually slow down psychologically and just think she's a better athlete than you for whatever reason because she has better genetics even though you're twins.
Right.
You know?
Mentally, that'll fuck with you.
Yeah, I hear too many people talk about genetics. I'm not saying like, look, I always said I'm not going to be a pro basketball player. I'm clearly not tall enough for that, right? But the thing is, you can be an absolutely phenomenal athlete if you pick a sport that's within your structure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You don't have to be the most gifted athlete. You just have to train optimally. Now, if the gifted athlete trains optimally, they'll beat you, but you can be top 3, top 4 in the world. You know, that's if the gifted athlete trains as well as you do. You know, that's a big if. So, you know, for me, it's about being optimal. You know, and our rest period is designed for that. Your rest period in CrossFit is shorter to work your conditioning, to work your GPP. Our rest period is longer to work absolute strength and to build explosive power.
Yep. Pretty simple.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to tell the world today?
You know, like we just talked about right now, I want you guys to think about optimizing what you do. Optimizing your fuel, optimizing your hydration, optimizing your sleep.